They laughed every time I grabbed my red DoorDash bag from the hook by the door. My brother, my cousins, even my friends, every one of them had something to say about my late-night runs. "Man, you're too old to be delivering burgers," my cousin joked once. "Nobody gets rich driving fries around town," my brother added, laughing like he was dropping wisdom. I never argued. I just tied my shoes, kept my head down, and walked out into the cold night air, pretending their voices didn't sting as much as they did. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was how close I was to breaking. How close I was to giving up on any dream I once had. But the universe has a strange way of testing you right before it changes everything. Because one night, one address, one single delivery out of the thousands I had completed turned my entire life upside down. I didn't expect the door to open the way it did. I didn't expect the man on the other side to know my name. And I definitely didn't expect a $310 million offer to come from a delivery that should have been worth $8 and a tip. I never started DoorDash because I loved driving. I started because I was drowning. Bills stacking up, job hours cut, pride crushed one piece at a time. Night deliveries were the only thing keeping me afloat, even if the people closest to me treated it like a joke. Every time I headed out at 9:50 at night, I'd hear some kind of comment, lighthearted on the surface, but heavy enough to make me wonder if they were right. Maybe I was wasting my life. Maybe I was meant for nothing more than dropping off fast food on doorsteps. But life has a strange way of hiding miracles in the most ordinary moments. And mine came wrapped in a plain paper bag with a pickup time of 10:11 p.m. on a Thursday. Before a single detail unfolds, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, because stories like this aren't just surprising, they're proof that a single night can change everything. And for me, that night began with a simple delivery request, one I almost didn't accept.
The night that changed everything didn't look any different from the hundreds of nights before it. I remember stepping outside into the cool air just after 9:50 in the evening, pulling my faded DoorDash jacket tighter around my shoulders as I walked to my car. The streetlights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. My brother's laugh still echoed faintly in my head, even though I had closed the door behind me. "Another glamorous night out delivering tacos?" he had called after me. "Try not to trip over your dignity on the way out." He thought he was funny. Maybe he was, to everyone else. But to me, those jokes hit a part of my chest that stayed sore long after the laughter faded. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment and let the silence settle. Then my phone vibrated with a new order. A pickup at a small family-owned restaurant, one I'd been to so many times that the staff greeted me by name. It was a basic order, nothing special. A grilled chicken bowl, extra sauce, no veggies, and a side of garlic bread. The kind of order I could complete half asleep. I hit accept, started the engine, and pulled onto the road. Driving at night has a way of making you feel both invisible and exposed at the same time. The world quiets down. Headlights stretch across the asphalt like reaching arms, and the hum of the engine becomes the backdrop to every thought you try to outrun. I had been doing this gig long enough to memorize the rhythm of the city after dark. The empty parking lots, the quiet gas stations, the dim windows of apartment complexes where only a handful of lights still glowed. The restaurant was busy when I walked in, but the owner, a woman in her 60s who treated every customer like her own child, waved at me from behind the counter. "Order for Michael?" she asked. I nodded. "Yep." She smiled gently. "Rough night?" I didn't think I looked that tired, but I must have. "Long week," I said, "but hanging in there." She handed me the sealed bag, still warm in my hands. "Well, I hope something good finds you tonight," she said with a wink. I didn't know why those words hit me, but they did. Maybe because I was so used to hearing the opposite. I thanked her, walked back to my car, and placed the bag on the passenger seat. The delivery address was a house on the far edge of town, past where the streetlights begin to thin out and the road grows darker. Normally, I hated those drives. They felt isolating, eerie. But something about this one felt strangely calm. I turned onto the main road, letting the radio play softly in the background.
A few minutes into the drive, another message came through the app. Please leave the order at the door. Do not ring the bell. Standard enough, people didn't always want interaction, especially late at night. But something about the phrasing felt deliberate. Not rude, not friendly, just precise. As I got closer to the neighborhood, the houses grew larger and farther apart. Big yards, long driveways, tall trees lining the road like silent guards. This wasn't the kind of place I usually delivered to. Most of my orders came from cramped apartments or old duplexes where people barely cracked the door open far enough to grab their food. But this looked like a whole different world. The GPS instructed me to turn onto a long, private road with a mailbox marked with the number 37. My tires crunched over gravel as I drove down the narrow path. A big 2-story home came into view, soft, warm light spilling from the windows. Not too bright, not too dim, just intentional. I parked near the front steps and grabbed the bag. Everything felt too quiet. Even the air felt still, like the night was holding its breath. As I stepped onto the porch, I noticed something unusual. The door was already cracked open. Not wide enough to see inside, but enough to make my pulse jump slightly. I hesitated. Normally, I would have taken a photo of the bag at the doorstep, uploaded it to the app, and walked away. But something, curiosity maybe, instinct, pushed me to lift my hand and knock gently, just to be sure. Before my knuckles touched the wood, the door opened another few inches, just enough for a man to appear in the doorway. He was older, late 50s, maybe early 60s, with silver hair and a calm, composed expression. Not surprised, not startled, almost like he had been waiting for me. "You're earlier than expected," he said. His voice carried no frustration, only observation. "Traffic was light," I replied automatically. My heart thudded in my chest. His eyes scanned my face with a kind of recognition that didn't make sense. I had never been to this house, never seen this man. Yet his gaze lingered like he was flipping through memories in real time. "You're the delivery driver?" he asked quietly. "Yes, sir." He nodded slowly, almost thoughtfully. "Good." Instead of taking the bag, he stepped back slightly. "Come inside for a moment." My stomach tightened. "Sir, DoorDash rules don't allow." "Just for a moment," he repeated, his voice soft but firm. "I need to speak with you. It's important." Every instinct told me to leave the food and go, but something about him, his tone, his calmness, the strange familiarity in his eyes, made me pause. Against every rule I knew, I stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of cedar and coffee, warm, lived in. He closed the door gently behind me. "I'm not here to make you uncomfortable," he said. "I just need to confirm something." He gestured to the small table near the entryway. On it sat a folder, thick, closed, and marked with a corporate logo I recognized instantly. I froze. That logo belonged to a tech company that had once run an innovation contest nearly 6 years ago, a contest I had submitted an idea to, an idea that had disappeared into silence, never acknowledged. The man saw the realization hit me. "You remember it," he said. My mouth dried. How do you—" He stepped forward and placed a hand on the folder. "Because I read your submission. Not recently, not back then, just now. And I need to know if you're still the same person who wrote it." I felt my breath catch. My legs nearly gave out beneath me. Why now?" He let out a slow sigh. "Because your idea resurfaced during an internal audit. And because we're looking for developers with real-world perspective, not corporate polish." He slid the folder toward me. "Inside is a proposal. I want you to read it when you get home." My hands shook as I took the folder. It felt heavier than anything I had ever held. "What kind of proposal?" His eyes met mine, calm, certain. "One worth $310 million if you choose to move forward." The room seemed to tilt. The floor felt unsteady. I gripped the folder like it was the only anchor in the world. Why me?" he said,
Because sometimes the universe hides the right people in the places no one else bothers to look. And tonight, I found you. I walked back to my car, holding the folder like it was some kind of fragile artifact dug out of the ground after years of being buried. The night air felt colder now, sharper, as if the world itself knew that something had shifted under my feet. When I opened the car door, I didn't toss the folder onto the passenger seat like I usually did with orders or receipts. I placed it carefully, like it was alive. The glow from the street lamp outside cast a pale circle over the dashboard, and for a moment, I just sat there with both hands on the steering wheel, staring at the folder as my mind tried to catch up with reality. A $310 million proposal for something I had created years ago. Something I thought had died before it even had a chance to breathe. I didn't drive away immediately. I needed the world to stop spinning. I needed the shaking in my hands to settle. I needed to believe that I wasn't dreaming inside a car that smelled faintly of food spills and air freshener. When I finally started the engine, my chest tightened with a mix of fear and excitement, so strong it felt like electricity running through my ribs. The drive home felt shorter than usual, even though I knew it wasn't. My mind replayed every moment with the man at the door. The calmness in his voice, the strange familiarity in his eyes, the certainty when he said he had been waiting for someone like me. And then that number, $310 million, a number so large it didn't feel real. I parked in the driveway and killed the engine, but I didn't get out right away. Light spilled from the living room window, a warm yellow glow that meant my brother was still awake. For the first time in a long time, I felt no dread about seeing him. No tightening in my stomach, no bracing for a joke, no weight in my chest. I opened the door, grabbed the folder, and walked inside. My brother looked up from the couch, a half-eaten bag of chips on his lap. "That was fast. Busy night?" I didn't answer. I walked past him and went straight to my room, closing the door behind me before my emotions could betray me. I sat on my bed, folder in my lap, heart pounding so loudly that it drowned out every other sound in the room. My lamp cast a warm glow across the blanket, and I took one long, steady breath before opening the folder. Inside were several pages of documentation, typed neatly, labeled clearly, with a logo at the top that made my stomach twist. The same one from the innovation contest years ago. The same one I had believed in for months, only to hear nothing and eventually give up on. I lifted the first page. "Daniel, your conceptual design from the 2 mil IDSA Innovation Initiative has resurfaced following internal restructuring and archive recovery. After review, it has been deemed viable for prototype development." My eyes glazed with disbelief as I kept reading. The proposal detailed expected project timelines, development budgets, and what the company wanted to pursue with my idea. It wasn't just interest. It wasn't a courtesy. It was a structured plan, a serious one. And then at the bottom of the first page, a handwritten note. "Sometimes the right ideas get lost in the wrong places. You deserved better than silence. Let's fix that." M.R. Carter. That name hit me like a bolt of lightning. Carter. The same last name as the man at the door? But the initials didn't match. M.R. Carter. The older brother of the man who had spoken to me? A superior? Someone higher in the company? I flipped to the second page, which outlined compensation structures for successful prototype adoption, and that's where I saw the number written out. Projected licensing value, approximately $310 million. I dropped the paper. It fluttered onto my bed like a feather, while my entire world crashed around it. I stood up, pacing the room, running both hands over my face. $310 million. Not theoretical, not fantasy, not internet nonsense. A real contract, a real opportunity, a real life-changing moment sitting in my hands.
And I had just walked into that house because of a DoorDash order. Fate has a strange sense of humor. When I finally calmed enough to sit again, I read the rest of the packet. Every line, every footnote, every legal phrase I barely understood. All of it led to one truth. They wanted me. Not because I had a polished resume or a degree from a fancy engineering school, not because I had connections or wealth or any of the things my brother liked to tease me about not having. They wanted me because something I created had value, real value. I stared at my own sketches from years before, remembering the version of myself who stayed up until 2 a.m. night after night, drawing until his hands cramped. The version of myself who believed he could build something that mattered. The version of myself who had been crushed when silence was the only response he ever got. I had buried that guy. Buried him deep. I thought life had beaten him out of me. But here he was again. Alive. Breathing inside me, pushing against my ribcage as if to say, I told you we weren't done. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I lay awake replaying everything, the meeting, the folder, the opportunity, the validation. I watched the ceiling shift from darkness to the faint blue of early morning. Around 6:20 a.m., I heard my brother walking down the hallway. He knocked once on my door. You home? He asked through the wood. Yeah, I said. Didn't sleep? Not much. You okay? For once, his voice didn't sound sarcastic. It sounded concerned. I hesitated. Then I opened the door. He stood there, messy hair, tired eyes, holding a mug of coffee he clearly wasn't offering to share. He looked at the folder on my bed. What's that? I said, something important. He stepped inside cautiously as if he were entering a room full of explosives. DoorDash paperwork? He tried to laugh, but it broke off halfway through. Something in my eyes must have told him the truth wasn't funny. No, I said softly. Not DoorDash. Then for the first time in years, I let him in. I told him about the contest, the idea, the silence, the rediscovery, the proposal. I watched the disbelief spread across his face like a slow sunrise. He sat down heavily at the edge of my bed, staring at the papers like they were made of gold. $310 million, he whispered. If the project goes through, I confirmed. He ran a hand over his face. For once, he didn't have a joke. No sarcasm, no smirk. He just looked stunned, and maybe a little proud. Damn, he said finally. I didn't know you had this in you. A small, almost sad laugh escaped me. I did, I said quietly. But I forgot. He looked up at me, eyes softer than I'd ever seen. Well, don't forget again. For the first time in forever, I saw recognition in his eyes. Not the kind that comes from familiarity, but the kind that comes from finally seeing someone clearly. And for the first time in years, I felt seen.
That morning moved differently. I could feel it in the way the sunlight hit my window, in the quiet hum of the refrigerator down the hall, even in the way my breath felt heavier than usual, like my lungs were trying to make room for a new version of my life. After my brother left my room, I sat there for nearly 10 minutes staring at the packet spread across my bed. Part of me wanted to jump into action, to call the number on the last page, to demand the next steps. But another part of me, maybe the version of myself that had been disappointed so many times, barely had the courage to touch the papers again. What if it was all some misunderstanding? What if I misread something? What if they'd changed their minds? Fear and hope wrestled inside me so loudly that I almost didn't hear my phone vibrating. When I saw the name on the screen, Evan Carter, my breath froze. I answered on the second ring, trying to steady my voice. Hello? Daniel, he said, sounding exactly as calm as he had the night before.
Did you read the proposal? I did. All of it. Good. Then you understand why I asked you to come by again today. My heart jumped. Come by? Today? Yes, we're fast-tracking this review. Internal engineers have already completed the digital simulation of your design concepts. He paused, just long enough for my nerves to spike. And the results are promising. I squeezed the back of my neck, trying to ground myself. Promising how? Come see for yourself. 1 p.m., conference room B. Don't be late. The line clicked, no time for questions, doubt, or panic, just a command. And somehow, that command settled me. I think some part of me needed someone to take me seriously before I even knew how to take myself seriously again. I took a long shower, put on the cleanest shirt I owned, and spent way too many minutes trying to comb my hair into something that didn't scream night delivery driver with zero sleep. Before I left, my brother knocked lightly on my door. You heading out? Yeah, I said. Meeting. He nodded slowly. Want me to drive you, in case you're, nervous? It was the closest thing to kindness I had seen from him in years. I smiled. No, I've got it. He stepped aside. Go get it, man. Those words, coming from him, felt heavier than the packet I carried under my arm. The drive to the company building felt surreal. I'd been down that road countless times for deliveries, passing office complexes, hospitals, and storefronts, without ever imagining I might walk into one of those places for something other than handing off a bag of food. But today, when I pulled into the visitor parking area, I felt like I was walking into another version of my life entirely. The receptionist greeted me with a polite nod, and before I could say anything, she lifted her phone. Mr. Carter, he's here. She pointed me toward an elevator. 3rd floor, conference room B. He's expecting you. I swear my heart was beating so hard I could hear it echoing off the metal doors as the elevator rose. When they opened, I stepped into a hallway lined with frosted glass panels and quiet offices, a far cry from the greasy kitchens and fast food drive-thrus I was used to. Evan stood outside a large conference room, tapping something on a tablet. When he saw me, he motioned me over. Right on time. I nodded. Traffic was easy. Good, he said, pushing open the conference room door. Let's get to work. Inside was a long table, a large wall screen, and 2 engineers already waiting. One older, with white hair and thin glasses, the other younger with a buzz cut and a sharp, analytical expression. This is Daniel, Evan said. His concept is the basis for what we'll be reviewing today. The younger engineer gave a short nod. Heard good things. My stomach tightened. They've been talking about me. Evan dimmed the lights and tapped his tablet. The wall screen came to life, revealing a 3-dimensional rendering of a device, my device, rotating slowly in digital space. Even though the engineers had modernized the materials, refined the edges, and improved some of the structural elements, I recognized my fingerprints all over it. My ideas, my lines, my notes. The room went quiet. I didn't breathe. We built a digital prototype based on your updated sketches, the older engineer explained. We ran structural stress tests, functional simulations, and performance projections overnight. He tapped his laptop, changing the display to lines of data and moving charts. And? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Evan stepped forward. And your design passed all 3 major categories, he said. My chest expanded so fast I thought I might choke. It passed? More than passed, the younger engineer said. This thing, it's like viable, like mass production viable. I stared at the screen, almost unable to process the words. For years, I had convinced myself my work was childish, naive, worthless. Now professionals, engineers with decades of experience were calling it viable. The concept is strong, the older engineer continued. Innovative, simple but clever, versatile. The type of idea that shouldn't have been lost in an archive. Evan looked at me then, and something softened in his expression. And that's exactly why we're moving forward. My knees felt weak, but I forced myself to stay standing. So what happens next? We build a physical prototype, a real one, a functional one. The younger engineer added, then we test it, stress, usability, durability, market viability. If it performs the way we expect, we present it to our acquisition board. Evan placed a hand on the back of a chair, and that's where the contract becomes real. Hearing that out loud hit me harder than I expected. My throat felt tight, and for a moment I couldn't speak. I don't even know what to say, I finally managed. Evan motioned for me to sit. Then don't say anything yet, just listen. I sat down, gripping the armrests like I was sitting on a roller coaster I didn't agree to ride. Evan took a seat across from me. Daniel, ideas like yours don't come around often. You have a mind for creative engineering, even if you've spent the last few years working nights delivering food. The younger engineer nodded. Some of the best concepts we've seen aren't from people with degrees or fancy resumes. They're from people who live real lives and solve real problems. I swallowed hard. My voice cracked when I said, I didn't think I had anything left. You were wrong, he replied, simply. And now, you have a choice. You can step into this fully, or you can walk away. But if you walk away, understand that opportunities like this don't circle back twice. I took a deep breath. I want to move forward. Good, he said. Then we're aligned. After the meeting, Evan walked me out to the hallway. People passed by. Designers, analysts, executives, all moving with purpose. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like an intruder in someone else's world. I felt like a missing piece that had finally been found. Before I left, Evan placed a hand on my shoulder. Daniel, listen to me, he said quietly, his voice steady. This isn't luck. This is the universe correcting a mistake. You earned this moment a long time ago. My chest tightened with emotion. I couldn't hide if I tried. Thank you, I said, for everything. Don't thank me yet, he said with a faint smile. The hard part hasn't even started. I left the building with my heart racing, my mind spinning, my future reshaping itself with every step. Something extraordinary had begun, something I never saw coming on a Thursday night delivery shift. And deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't going back to who I used to be. Not now. Not ever. And soon, neither would anyone who ever doubted me. The drive home felt nothing like the drive there. The world outside my windshield looked the same. Same streets, same stores, same billboards. But I was different. The version of me gripping the steering wheel now wasn't the man who had left that morning. It felt like I had stepped into a larger version of myself. One that had always existed somewhere deep inside, but had been trapped beneath years of disappointment and self-doubt. When I pulled into the driveway, my brother was already standing by the door, pretending he just happened to be outside at the exact moment I arrived. He failed miserably at looking casual. "Well?" he asked, eyes wide. "How did it go?" I stepped out of the car slowly, still processing the whirlwind of information, emotions, and possibilities. It went good, I said simply. His eyebrows shot up. Good as in they're thinking about it? Or good as in actual good? I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, and nodded. Good as in they're moving forward. His jaw dropped. Shut up. I'm serious, I said, walking past him and into the house. He followed, peppering me with questions like an overexcited kid. What do you mean moving forward? Like actually? Like this is real? I placed the folder gently on the kitchen table, opened it, and pointed to the summary page the engineers had written specifically for me. His eyes scanned the words, his mouth falling open little by little, until he looked like he had forgotten how to blink. Holy crap, he whispered. This is legit. Yeah, I said softly. It is. He pulled out a chair and sat down, rubbing his face with both hands. Dude, you're gonna be rich. I laughed, an exhausted, overwhelmed, disbelieving laugh. It's a long road before any money comes in. But yeah, if everything goes well, it's possible. My brother shook his head in disbelief, then looked up at me with an expression I almost didn't recognize. Respect. "I'm proud of you," he said. The words felt strange coming from him, like hearing music from a speaker you always thought was broken. "Thanks," I replied quietly. I needed that. Over the next few days, everything began to accelerate. Emails came in from the engineering team requesting notes, clarifications, technical preferences. Evan sent updates on internal scheduling, notifying me about meetings I would eventually have with legal, design, and product development. And then came the biggest surprise of all, an invitation to join the company, temporarily, as a contracted design consultant during the prototype phase. Not a job delivering food, a job creating something. Real. Something mine. The contract was for 6 months, with compensation that nearly made me choke when I read it. $240,000, paid in monthly installments. My hands trembled as I held the offer. It wasn't the $310 million licensing value. That would only come if the product succeeded, but this alone? This was life-changing. My brother nearly dropped his phone when I told him. "Bro, do you understand? This is more money than you've made in the last, 5 years combined?" "Probably more than that," I admitted. "This is insane," he muttered. "In the best way." He stopped in front of me, a serious expression settling over his face. "You're not doing DoorDash anymore." I laughed. "You think?" He smacked my arm lightly. "No, I'm serious. You're done with that. You're officially retired from late-night taco drops." That night, I opened the DoorDash app and stared at the Dash Now button. For years, that little red circle had been my lifeline, the bridge between survival and collapse. My thumb hovered over the screen. I felt a strange mix of gratitude, sadness, and relief. Then I closed the app and deleted it. The silence that followed felt like closing a chapter of my life that had overstayed its welcome. The next morning, I drove to the company building again, this time not as a delivery driver, not as someone hoping to prove himself, but as someone who belonged there. I wore the same clean shirt from before because it still felt like the closest thing I had to important meeting clothes. When I walked through the front doors, the receptionist greeted me with a warm smile. "Good morning, Mr. Daniels. Conference Wing A today." Mr. Daniels. Not sir, not buddy, not delivery. Mr. Daniels. I don't think she realized how much that meant to me. I made my way through the hallways, past glass offices and people carrying laptops, until I reached a room filled with the engineering team. My name was already on a plaque at the end of the table. My heart swelled. Evan stood at the front of the room with a series of blueprints displayed on a large screen. "Everyone," he said. "This is Daniel, the original designer of the prototype. He'll be working with us as a consultant moving forward." Heads turned. People nodded politely. A few even smiled. For someone who had spent years feeling invisible, it was overwhelming. Then the work began. Real work. Hours spent refining measurements, adjusting angles, discussing materials, analyzing stress points, debating cost efficiency. At first, I worried I wouldn't understand the technical jargon. But the engineers didn't treat me like a beginner. They treated me like a creator. Every time I spoke, they listened. Every time I suggested a change, they considered it seriously. And every time I hesitated, Evan reminded me, "Your instincts built this. Trust them." Days turned into weeks. The prototype moved from concept to physical reality. A shiny metal structure formed from the blueprint of my imagination, built piece by piece in the company's fabrication lab. I will never forget the moment they unveiled it in front of me. The moment I saw something I once sketched on the back of a cheap notebook become an object I could reach out and touch. I stepped closer, running my fingers along its surface. The cool metal felt like stepping into a dream I hadn't allowed myself to dream for years. "It's beautiful," I whispered,
"It's yours," Evan said simply. The testing phase began immediately. Engineers ran stress tests, durability tests, real-world condition exams. They pushed the device to its limits, and every time it held strong, I felt a wave of pride wash over me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just surviving. I was building something, contributing something, becoming someone. And through it all, one thought kept echoing in my mind. All of this started because I showed up for a delivery I almost didn't take. Life is strange like that. One decision made at 10 Oaks Valeny on a Thursday night became the hinge that swung the door of my future wide open. One customer, one interaction, one moment, and everything changed. By the time the prototype passed its final test, the room filled with applause. Even the quiet engineers who rarely spoke were grinning. Evan stepped towards me, extending his hand. "It's time," he said. I shook his hand, feeling a surge of pride so strong it almost knocked the air out of my lungs. "Time for what?" "To present your invention," he said. "To the acquisition board." My stomach flipped. My pulse accelerated. My entire body felt electric. This was it. The moment everything had been leading to. The meeting that would decide whether I earned the $310 million licensing contract or walked away with only the experience. And deep down, I knew something with absolute certainty. No matter what happened next, I wasn't the same man who once delivered food in the dark hoping for tips. I had stepped into the life I was meant to live. And I wasn't going back. The night before the presentation, I barely slept. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every step that had led me to this moment. The late-night shifts, the jokes from my brother, the long drives with fast food smells trapped in my car, the feeling that life had quietly passed me by. And then that one delivery, that one house, that one man opening the door and recognizing something in me I thought was long gone. By the time the sun rose, my nerves were stretched thin, but under the anxiety pulsed something new. Belief. Not blind confidence, not arrogance, just a quiet certainty that I belonged in the room I was about to enter. I dressed carefully, choosing the same clean shirt that had somehow become my unofficial, important meeting uniform. My brother stood in the doorway as I grabbed my folder. "He can drive you if you want," he offered. His voice was soft, almost nervous. "You know, big day and all." I shook my head. "Thanks. I need to do this alone." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Hey," he said before I walked out. "No matter what happens, I'm proud of you." I held his gaze for a second. "Thanks, man." The air outside felt crisp, almost too clean for the chaos swirling in my chest. As I drove toward the company building, every stoplight felt like a moment of reflection. Red for doubt, green for hope. When I finally pulled into the parking lot, my hands were shaking just enough for me to notice. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and whispered to myself, "You earned this." Inside the building, Evan was already waiting in the hallway outside the boardroom. He looked calm, professional, completely unfazed. Meanwhile, I felt like a balloon stretched too close to popping. Nervous? Is it that obvious? He said, "Only because it means you care. That's good. It'll show." He straightened my collar slightly, a gesture strangely comforting for a man I had only met twice. "Listen, Daniel, these people are sharp. They're fast. They're trained to find weaknesses. But what you have isn't weakness, it's originality, authenticity. That's something they can't manufacture." I nodded slowly. "And remember," he added, "I didn't bring you here to fail." Before I could react, the door to the boardroom opened. A woman with short silver hair and glasses stepped out. "We're ready for you." My feet felt like concrete as I followed her inside. The room was large, bright, intimidating. Polished table, floor-to-ceiling windows, a dozen executives seated with tablets and documents in front of them.
Their expressions were tight, unreadable. Evan gestured toward the presentation screen. Today, we'll be reviewing the prototype developed from Daniel's original design. I swallowed. My throat felt dry. The lights dimmed slightly as the three-dimensional rendering of my invention appeared on the wall screen, rotating slowly. I expected questions immediately, challenges, doubts, but the room stayed silent. Then Evan nodded at me. Daniel, walk them through your concept. My heart thudded in my ears, but I stepped forward. I began speaking, slowly at first, then with growing confidence as I explained what had inspired the idea years ago, how the design was meant to solve a problem real people faced, how simplicity was the strength, not the weakness. As I talked, I watched their faces. No one looked bored, no one looked skeptical. They were listening, really listening. When I finished, the silver-haired woman leaned forward. "Tell me," she said, "how did you come up with this?" I hesitated, then told the truth. I didn't have money for tools back then, so I started thinking about ways to make complicated tasks easier without expensive equipment. I wanted something lightweight, durable, reliable, something someone like me could use without feeling overwhelmed. A younger executive asked, "Do you have formal engineering training?" I shook my head. "No, sir, just life experience." A few people exchanged looks, not negative ones, surprised maybe, impressed. Then the older man at the end of the table, the one who hadn't spoken yet, cleared his throat. "Let's move on to the physical prototype." The engineers entered with the device, placing it on the table like it was something sacred. The board members leaned forward, inspecting every detail. One of them picked it up, testing the weight. Another examined the joint mechanism. The silver-haired woman pressed a button, watching the device unfold smoothly. "Impressive," she murmured. "Very impressive." My chest tightened as I watched them handle the object that had once lived only in my imagination. After several minutes of examination, they returned to their seats. The older man looked at Evan. Performance test results. Evan tapped his tablet, bringing up charts and videos of the device under stress testing. "Exceeded expectations," he said, "across every category." A quiet murmur spread across the room. Finally, the older man turned his attention to me. "Daniel, your idea is strong. Your execution is practical. Your design is marketable. And most importantly, your vision is unique." I felt my breath hitch. He continued, "We believe this product has high commercial potential, and we are prepared to move forward with acquisition." My heart stopped, just stopped. The room blurred around the edges. He added, "Pending legal review and final contract drafting, you will receive the licensing compensation outlined in the preliminary proposal." He paused. "Approximately $310,000? Evan cleared his throat. "Actually, sir, $310 million. The room froze. The older man looked at Evan, then at me, then back at the document in his hand. $310 million. "Yes," Evan confirmed, "based on projected market value and mass production feasibility." Silence followed, a heavy, weighty silence. Then the older man leaned back in his chair. He said quietly, "Well, congratulations." I didn't move, I didn't speak, I didn't breathe. It felt like the world had paused so my mind could catch up with the reality crashing into it. Evan placed a hand on my shoulder. "It's done," he whispered. "You did it!" The silver-haired woman stood and extended her hand. "Welcome to the future, Daniel." When I shook her hand, something inside me broke. Not in a painful way, but like a dam finally giving way after years of pressure. After the meeting ended, I stepped into the hallway, leaning against the wall as my legs finally threatened to give out. Evan joined me, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You okay?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "I feel like I'm dreaming." "Get used to it," he said. "Your life just changed." I walked out of the building in a daze, the sunlight hitting me like a spotlight, announcing the beginning of a new act. When I got home, my brother was on the porch waiting, bouncing on his heels like he was 12 years old again. He shouted the moment I stepped out of the car, "Well?" I didn't even need to speak. He read the answer on my face. "No way!" he breathed. They accepted it? I nodded. 310 mil. He staggered backward like he had been physically hit. Bro, you did it! You actually did it! He hugged me, something he hadn't done in years, and for the first time in a long time, I hugged him back like I meant it. That night, as I sat on my bed holding the folder that had started everything, I realized something powerful. Success doesn't come from being lucky. It comes from showing up on the nights when no one believes in you. It comes from choosing to keep going when the world laughs at you. It comes from taking the delivery you almost declined at 10:11 p.m. And sometimes, if you're patient enough, one ordinary moment becomes the doorway to a life you never imagined. And that's how my DoorDash side job, the one everyone mocked, turned into a $310 million contract.